I never meant to find it. The photo slipped out of an old yearbook while I was cleaning the attic. It showed my father, smiling beside a man who looked exactly like him. Same jawline. Same tired eyes. But the photo was dated 2 months ago, long after my father's twin supposedly died. Before I tell you how I got my revenge, hit that like button and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. Trust me, you'll want to hear how this ends. For years, I'd heard the story. Uncle Jonas had drowned in the river behind our old house. No body found, just his empty boat. My father never talked about him after that. Let the past stay buried, he'd say. And I did. Until now. The air in the attic felt colder as I stared at the photo. My father's arm was around Jonas, alive, older, and wearing the same gold watch my father now keeps locked in his drawer. A shadow crept up my spine. When I showed the picture to my mother, her face went white. She snatched it away and whispered, "You shouldn't have found that, Anne." Then she tore the photo in half. I didn't move. I just watched the torn pieces flutter into the trash like broken wings. That night, I decided I wasn't letting the past stay buried anymore. The digging started with me. The next morning, I asked my father about the photo. He was pouring coffee, the steam fogging his glasses. When I mentioned Jonas, his hand froze midair. The spoon clattered against the counter. "Where did you hear that name?" he asked, voice low and rough. "I saw a picture," I said. "It looked like you and him. Recently." He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "You must have been mistaken. Jonas has been gone for 25 years. Gone. Not dead." I noticed that word. He used it carefully, like a man walking on glass. I waited for him to say more, but he just turned back to his coffee. His silence felt heavier than any lie. After he left for work, I searched the trash. My mother had tried to tear the photo clean down the middle, but one half survived, the man who wasn't supposed to exist. I slipped it into my notebook. I told myself I just wanted to understand, but deep down I already knew. There was something my parents had buried long ago, and they'd done it together. If my father had lied about his twin, what else had he buried? Maybe Jonas wasn't the only one who disappeared. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every sound in the house felt sharper, the hum of the refrigerator, the creak of the floorboards, the wind brushing the shutters. Around midnight, I heard voices coming from downstairs. My parents. I crept halfway down the staircase, careful not to step on the squeaky middle step. If you like our revenge stories, please subscribe for more. We drop powerful news stories every week, filled with truth, emotion, and justice. Don't miss the next one. And remember, some stories hurt, but they heal too. Subscribe now, and join the journey. "She knows," my mother whispered. "She found the photo." "She doesn't know anything," my father hissed back. "I'll take care of it." Take care of it. Those words didn't sound like comfort. They sounded like warning. My mother's voice trembled. "You promised we'd never have to deal with this again." My father didn't answer. The silence between them was long and cold. Then came a softer voice, his, "If Jonas shows his face again, he'll ruin everything." My heart slammed against my ribs. Jonas shows his face again. So he was alive. I climbed back to my room and sat on the edge of my bed, holding the half photo under the moonlight. The man's eyes stared back at me, calm and knowing. If Jonas was out there, my father was hiding more than I imagined. And if he'd lied about Jonas, maybe Jonas had a story of his own to tell. The attic called to me again the next morning. Dust floated through the light like tiny ghosts as I pushed aside boxes labeled "Old Taxes" and "Christmas." Beneath them, I found a small wooden chest I'd never seen before. Its lock was rusted, but the wood was weak. One good pull, and it cracked open. Inside were papers yellowed with age, receipts, photographs, and one envelope sealed with red wax. My heart beat faster when I saw the initials pressed into it, J.I. Jonas Isaac. I hesitated. Opening someone else's letter felt wrong. But after everything I'd heard, right and wrong seemed blurry now. I broke the seal. The handwriting was rushed, almost angry. If you're reading this, then he's lied again. He took my name, my work, and my life. But he won't keep my truth. It's time she knows who her father really is. She. The word jumped out at me. Did Jonas mean my mother, or me? I read it twice, my hands shaking. Someone had written this as if they knew I'd find it one day. The floor creaked behind me. And my father's voice called softly from below, "What are you doing up there?" I quickly hid the letter under my sweater. I stuffed the letter under my pillow that night, but sleep wouldn't come. The words circled in my head like restless birds. He took my name, my work, and my life. What did that mean? Was my father not the man I thought he was? At breakfast, I watched him read the newspaper, calm as ever. The sunlight hit his watch, the same gold one from the photo, and I felt sick. My mother avoided my eyes, her fingers tapping the table like she was counting seconds until I left. I realized then that they were both pretending. Pretending everything was fine. Pretending Jonas was gone. Pretending I didn't matter enough to know the truth. When I left for school, I didn't go there. I walked to the old bus stop on the edge of town, the one that still carried mail to the next city. The letter had a return address faintly scribbled on the back, something Ridge Road, Crestfield. I traced the letters with my thumb. Crestfield was only 2 hours away. If Jonas was alive, I needed to hear it from him. Revenge wasn't on my mind yet. Just answers. But sometimes, answers are the spark that starts the fire. The bus to Crestfield rattled like it might fall apart any second, but I didn't care. The letter stayed tight in my jacket pocket, its paper soft from my hands. The closer we got to the city, the heavier it felt, like it was carrying a heartbeat of its own. Crestfield wasn't what I expected. Rows of brick buildings leaned tiredly against each other, and the air smelled like rain and old metal. I followed the directions from the envelope until I stood in front of an abandoned post office. The sign above the door was cracked, the glass dusty. Inside, it was quiet except for the hum of a flickering light. Dust coated every surface. I found the old P.O. boxes lined against the wall, numbers fading to gray. Box 217. That was the one written on the envelope. It was still locked. But inside the slot, something glimmered faintly, a piece of folded paper wedged in the crack. I used a hairpin to pry it free. The note inside was short, written in the same hurried hand as the letter. If you found this, they'll come for you next. Don't trust anyone named Isaac. My knees almost gave out. I was an Isaac. I left the post office with the note clenched in my fist. The streets of Crestfield felt too quiet, the shadows too long. I didn't know where to go next, but the name Isaac burned in my ears like a curse. Across the street stood a small cafe, its window fogged from the morning chill. I stepped inside, ordered tea I didn't want, and asked the woman behind the counter if she'd ever heard of a man named Jonas Isaac. Her eyes flicked up fast. Haven't heard that name in years, she said. Used to rent the room above this place. Paid in cash. Always wore a hat low, like he didn't want to be seen. My heart thudded. Do you know where he went? She hesitated. He had a friend. Old Mr. Kellen, lives 2 blocks east. They used to talk late at night. I thanked her and stepped outside. The rain had started, thin and cold. 2 blocks away, I spotted a porch light glowing faintly through the drizzle. An old man sat there, rocking slowly in a chair, watching me like he'd been waiting. Before I could speak, he said, "You've got his eyes. You must be Jonas's girl." I froze on the porch steps. The old man's voice carried a quiet weight, like someone who'd seen too much to be surprised anymore. "I'm not Jonas's daughter," I said. "My father's name is Nathan Isaac." Mr. Kellen gave a slow, knowing smile. Names can lie, child. Faces don't. He motioned for me to sit. The porch smelled like rain and tobacco. Jonas and Nathan were closer than brothers, he said softly. Until greed tore them apart. One wanted to build something honest. The other wanted power. I don't need to tell you which path won. I felt a lump rise in my throat. Jonas, he's alive, isn't he? Kellen's eyes darkened. Alive? Maybe. But not the same. He lost everything because of your father, his company, his name, his peace. They say he drowned, but I saw him after that night. Scar on his face, rage in his heart. The wind picked up, shaking the porch. He told me once, Kellen said, voice low, that revenge would be the only thing keeping him breathing. My stomach turned cold. If Jonas was alive, then he'd been planning something. And if my father feared his return, maybe that revenge had already begun. I went to the cemetery the next morning. The clouds hung low, gray and heavy, pressing down on the rows of headstones. Jonas Isaac had a grave there, tucked near the edge under a weeping willow. I expected peace. Instead, I felt a chill crawl up my neck. The grave looked wrong. The ground was uneven, the grass patchy. Someone had been there recently. I brushed away damp leaves and knelt beside the stone. The engraved words read: Jonas Isaac, beloved brother, 1972 to 2000. Beloved brother. I almost laughed. When I touched the dirt, it sank under my fingers, soft, loose. A funeral director was trimming the nearby hedge. I called out, "Excuse me. Do you know who's buried here?" He frowned, wiping sweat from his brow. "No one, miss. That grave's empty. Was never filled. Some mix-up years ago. Paperwork said one thing, family said another. Strange business." My hands went cold. "Empty?" He nodded. Never seen that name again. I stood staring at the hollow ground, my heart pounding. My father had buried a lie and carved it in stone. Jonas wasn't dead. And if he'd dug himself out of his own grave, what was he planning to bury next? That night, I couldn't sleep. The photo of my father and Jonas, identical smiles, same scar by the temple, sat on my desk. I'd found it in the same box as the birth certificate. But now that I knew Jonas's grave was empty, the photo felt like evidence, not memory. I zoomed in on the background of the image, taken in front of an old warehouse with a faded sign that read Everline Metals. My pulse quickened. Everline was the same company that had mysteriously shut down 2 decades ago after an explosion, an accident my father had refused to talk about. I searched the name online and found an article dated 3 years ago. My stomach twisted. A man had been photographed at a charity gala, smiling beside the mayor. His name tag read Jonathan Ives, CEO of Ives Holdings. But I knew that face. The same crooked smile. The same scar by the temple. Jonas Isaac was alive. And he'd changed his name. I printed the article and pinned it to my wall beside the photo. My father had spent his life building locks. Jonas had spent his building lies. But I was my father's daughter. And I just found the key to unlock his twin secrets. I skipped school the next morning and took the train back to Crestfield. My hands shook as I clutched the photo and the article. Jonathan Ives. It was such a neat disguise, just enough to hide in plain sight. But why come back now, after all these years? When I arrived, I went straight to Everline Metals. The building was nothing more than a skeleton of rust and glass, half swallowed by weeds. The air smelled like burnt metal. I pushed open the warped door and stepped inside. Ash crunched under my shoes. Old safety helmets hung from nails, covered in dust. In the center of the floor was a blackened scorch mark, the place where the explosion had started. I knelt, brushing away soot. Something glinted underneath. It was a lighter. Brass, engraved with the initials and I. My father's. I pocketed it quickly, my throat dry. Suddenly, a soft crack echoed from the shadows. "And Isaac," a voice said behind me, smooth and low. "You shouldn't be here." I turned sharply. A man stood in the doorway, tall, coat dripping from the rain. For a moment, I thought I was seeing my father. Then he smiled. And I knew it was Jonas. My breath caught in my throat. Jonas stepped closer, his eyes sharp but calm, like he'd been waiting for me. The resemblance was unreal, same voice, same tilt of the head, but harder, colder. "You're Nathan's girl," he said. "Did he finally send you to finish the job?" I shook my head. "He told me you were dead." Jonas laughed, bitter and quiet. "He's been killing me for years, Anne. Just not in the way you think." He moved around the ruined floor, picking up a piece of scorched metal. "Your father stole this company. My company. When I tried to expose him, he burned it all, records, proof, and nearly me along with it." The words hit like sparks. "So the explosion was no accident." His gaze locked on mine. "Nathan framed me, took everything, and made the world think I was gone." The lighter in my pocket felt heavier. I wanted to speak, to deny it, but my voice failed. Jonas's tone softened. "You wanted the truth. Now you have it. What will you do with it?" I stared at him, heart pounding. For the first time, I realized the truth didn't scare me. What scared me was what I might do next. I followed Jonas out of the factory. The rain had stopped, but the air still tasted like smoke. He walked fast, like he couldn't stand still too long, like ghosts were chasing him. "Why come back now?" I asked. "If my father did all that, why not expose him years ago?" He didn't answer right away. "Because no one believed me then," he said finally. "Nathan made sure of that. He forged papers, twisted stories, turned me into a criminal. I had to disappear." He stopped under a streetlight. "But I've been watching him. Waiting. He built his empire on lies, and it's starting to crack." "Why tell me?" I asked. "I'm his daughter." Jonas looked at me with something like pity. "You're our blood, Anne. You deserve to know both halves of the truth." I froze. "Our?" His eyes softened. "Your mother was with me first. Before he took everything, including her." The ground seemed to tilt beneath me. My stomach twisted. If he was telling the truth, then my father wasn't the man I thought he was. And Jonas wasn't just my uncle. He was the father I was never meant to know. The world spun. I wanted to tell Jonas he was wrong, that my father loved me, that my family wasn't a lie. But his eyes, those same gray eyes I saw in the mirror every morning, made it hard to breathe. "You're lying," I whispered. He didn't flinch. "Ask your mother, Anne. She'll tell you what he did. She just won't like remembering it." I stepped back, shaking my head. "Why should I believe you?" Jonas sighed, reaching into his coat. He handed me a folded photograph, my mother, much younger, standing between the two brothers. Her hand wasn't on Nathan's shoulder. It was on Jonas's. "She was pregnant when the fire happened," Jonas said quietly. "Nathan saved her, not because he cared, but because she was carrying the one thing he could use to keep me silent." The wind howled through the empty street, scattering ash and leaves. I stared at the photo, at my mother's gentle smile. My knees went weak. Everything I thought I knew, my family, my name, my life, was built on someone else's theft. Jonas touched my arm. "You can hate me if you want," he said. "But don't let him keep owning you." And right then, hate began to feel like power. When I got home, my mother was in the kitchen, humming softly as she washed dishes. The sound made my chest ache. It was too normal for what I carried inside. I placed the photograph on the table. The humming stopped. "Where did you get that?" she asked, her voice thin. From Jonas, I said. He told me everything. Her face drained of color. You shouldn't have gone near him. So it's true? My voice cracked. He's my real father? The plate slipped from her hand and shattered in the sink. She didn't answer, just gripped the counter until her knuckles turned white. I loved him, she whispered finally. But Nathan found out. He said he'd destroy Jonas, so I lied. I let him claim you. My heart splintered. You let him steal my life. Tears welled in her eyes. I thought I was protecting you. I turned away, shaking. From what? The truth? Her voice dropped to a whisper. No, Anne. From what your father's capable of when someone crosses him. I looked back at her, my pulse hammering. Because if Nathan Isaac could destroy his own brother, then what would he do when he found out I knew? I couldn't look at my mother after that. Her words clung to me like smoke, filling every breath with fear. My father, Nathan, came home later than usual that night. His footsteps were heavy, deliberate. He walked into the kitchen, still in his suit, his gold watch gleaming under the light. The same watch from the photo. Your mother tells me you've been wandering, he said, setting down his briefcase. Crestfield, was it? My heart stuttered. I needed answers. He smiled faintly, but there was no warmth in it. You've been talking to Jonas. I didn't answer. The silence was enough. He took a slow step forward. You think he's some kind of hero, don't you? That man's a liar. A thief. His voice hardened. He tried to take everything from me, my business, my family, even you. He tapped his watch, the sound sharp. You see this? He gave it to me once. Said it was a symbol of trust. His jaw tightened. Now it reminds me never to make that mistake again. He leaned closer, voice low and steady. Stay away from him, Anne. He's dangerous. But as his reflection flickered in the gold watch, all I saw was the danger in him. I waited until the house fell silent before moving. My father's warning echoed in my head, each word sharp as glass. He's dangerous. Maybe he was right, but so was my father. I slipped into his office, the one I'd been forbidden to enter since I was a child. The air smelled like dust and cigar smoke. Files lined the shelves, each labeled with neat precision: contracts, finances, employees. On his desk sat a small black recorder beside a half-finished glass of whiskey. I pressed play. Static crackled, then my father's voice filled the room. He won't stay quiet forever. If Jonas comes back, we'll handle it the same way we did before. Another voice, my mother's, trembling. Nathan, please. Not again. Don't you understand? He snapped. If she finds out, it's over. The recorder clicked off. My pulse hammered. She. That meant me. I backed away, my hand brushing the edge of a drawer. Inside was a thick folder stamped confidential, Everline Metals. I opened it just enough to see photos, charred beams, an injured man on a stretcher, a police report marked arson under investigation. My father's signature was on the bottom. The truth wasn't buried. It was filed neatly, waiting to be found. I carried the folder to my room, my hands shaking. The papers smelled faintly of smoke, like the fire had never really gone out. Page after page showed what my father had tried to erase. Witness reports, blueprints, insurance claims. And tucked between them was a photo that made my stomach twist. Two men stood in front of the Everline factory, Jonas and Nathan. The caption at the bottom read, Business Partners and Brothers, 1999. But someone had drawn a red X across Jonas's face. One report caught my eye: explosion triggered by chemical tampering. Evidence points to deliberate ignition. The investigators' notes were crossed out, but I could still read two words underneath: Nathan Isaac. My throat tightened. He hadn't just betrayed Jonas. He'd tried to erase him. Outside, the wind howled, rattling the window. I stuffed the folder into my backpack, heart pounding. I needed proof, something undeniable. Jonas said he'd been waiting for justice, but justice was too soft for what Nathan had done. This wasn't about finding the truth anymore. It was about making him face it. For the first time, I didn't feel like a frightened daughter. I felt like my father's reckoning. I met Jonas again the next night at the edge of the old river, the same place he was supposed to have died. Mist curled over the water, and the moonlight turned everything silver and cold. He was already there, standing by the bank, staring at the current. "You found something," he said without turning around. I handed him the folder. Everything he did. His signature. His lies. "It's all here." Jonas flipped through the pages, his jaw tightening. "He kept records," he murmured. Typical Nathan. He always thought he could control the story. I watched him carefully. "You wanted revenge. Now you can have it." He looked up at me. "And what about you?" The night air stung my face. "I want him to see what he's done. To lose everything like you did." For a moment, Jonas just studied me. Then he nodded slowly. "Then we do it together." We shook hands beneath the cold moonlight, father and daughter bound not by love, but by vengeance. As I pulled my hand away, I realized how steady it felt. I wasn't afraid anymore. Somewhere deep down, Nathan Isaac had created both of us. Now he would learn what he'd made. I woke before dawn, the folder heavy in my bag. Jonas waited by the river as we planned. He had friends who owed him favors. I had the courage. Together we would expose Nathan. We picked a local reporter who had written about the factory before. Her name was Ms. Hale. She cared about truth. Jonas called a number from a tattered notebook, then handed me a burner phone. "This is your call," he said. At noon I left school and met Ms. Hale at a small cafe. I sat with the recorder and the documents. When she opened the folder, her eyes widened. "Are you sure?" she whispered. I nodded. My father started the fire. He buried Jonas. He lied to everyone. She said she would check facts but warned it could take days. I felt the panic climb. Jonas leaned against the window, patient and hard. "We cannot wait," he said. So I typed an anonymous email, attached scans, and sent them. Then I posted a link on a small forum where journalists watch for leads. Within hours messages arrived. Ms. Hale called back that night. "We are looking into it," she said. "This will shake the town." By morning, everything had changed. News spread fast. Local businessmen under investigation for factory arson. My father's name was everywhere. His photo flashed on every screen, smiling like a man who still thought he was in control. At breakfast, the tension in our house felt like a wire ready to snap. My mother sat pale and silent, clutching her mug. My father's phone buzzed non-stop, calls from lawyers, reporters, old friends suddenly gone quiet. He looked up at me, eyes blazing. "What did you do, Anne?" I met his stare. I told the truth. He slammed his hand on the table, the sound cracking through the air. "Do you have any idea what you've done to this family?" "Yes," I said. I stopped the lies. For a second, I saw something in his eyes, fear, maybe, but it vanished as fast as it came. He stood, his jaw tight. "You think you've won?" he hissed. "You have no idea what I can destroy." He stormed out, the door shaking behind him. I turned to my mother, but she wouldn't meet my eyes. Outside, sirens echoed in the distance. The truth was finally out. But I had no idea what kind of fire I'd just started. By evening, reporters crowded our front yard. Cameras flashed, voices shouted my father's name. Through the blinds, I saw him standing in the living room, suit still on, his phone pressed to his ear. Calm. Too calm. He wasn't broken. He was planning. My mother paced behind him, whispering, "Nathan, please, just tell them the truth." He shot her a look so cold it froze me in place. "The truth doesn't matter," he said. "Control does." Then he turned to me. "You think this will make people believe Jonas? He's a ghost with a record. You're a child. I'll fix this." He walked out into the noise, flashing a politician's smile for the cameras. "No comment," he said smoothly, waving as if the chaos were applause. But the world didn't clap back. Within hours, the stock price of his company crashed. Partners pulled out. The truth was burning through his empire faster than he could cover it. Jonas called me that night. "He's falling," he said. "Just let him." But I couldn't. Because part of me wanted to see his eyes when he realized it was me, his own daughter, who had lit the match. Revenge wasn't done yet. It was just beginning. 2 days later, the house felt like a battlefield. My father barely slept. Papers littered his office, phone calls ended in shouting, and the man who once terrified me now looked like he was shrinking under the weight of his own lies. I watched him from the hallway, his reflection warped in the cracked glass of a family photo. He still wore the gold watch, though its shine had dulled. "Why, Nathan?" My mother's voice trembled from the doorway. "You could have stopped this years ago." He didn't look up. "You think truth fixes anything? Truth ruins people." I stepped forward. "Then maybe it's your turn to be ruined." He turned to me slowly, eyes wild. "You did this," he whispered. "You betrayed me. I learned from the best." For a heartbeat, neither of us moved. Then he slammed his fist on the desk, papers scattering like ashes. "You don't understand what he took from me." "No," I said quietly. "I understand exactly what you took from him." The silence that followed was colder than any scream. My mother began to cry softly. That night, my father packed a bag. By morning, he was gone, leaving only his watch ticking faintly on the kitchen table. By sunrise, the news was everywhere: Nathan Isaac missing amid investigation. His photo filled every screen, but he looked nothing like the man I'd known. The confident smile was gone, replaced by something hollow. Jonas met me at the edge of town, near the same river where his life had once been stolen. "He's running," he said. "It's what cowards do when they run out of lies." I handed him the watch I'd found on the table. "He left this." Jonas turned it over in his hand. He never understood symbols, he murmured. "Trust, family, truth," he broke them all. We watched the river for a long time. The current was fast, dark, endless. Then Jonas looked at me. "You've done what I couldn't. You finished it." But it didn't feel like victory. It felt like something heavy settling in my chest. "He's still my father," I said. Jonas nodded slowly. "And I'm still the man he tried to erase. But maybe now, we can both stop being his shadows." The wind carried away the last of the smoke that had hung over our lives. The truth had burned everything down. All that was left was what we'd rebuild from the ashes. Weeks passed before they found my father's car abandoned near the cliffs. No body, no note, just the faint smell of fuel and the echo of everything he'd done. Some said he ran. Others said the river took him, like it almost took Jonas years ago. I didn't ask which to believe. Life moved on, slowly, awkwardly. My mother started sleeping again. Jonas began rebuilding Everline under his own name this time. No secrets, no lies. He offered me a place there, said I had the same fire he once did. Sometimes I'd visit the river alone. I'd watch the current twist and shimmer, and I'd think about how easily truth can drown when people stop fighting for it. I used to dream of revenge, of seeing Nathan Isaac fall. But standing there, I realized revenge wasn't what I wanted anymore. I just wanted freedom, from his lies, from his shadow, from the name that never truly belonged to me. I took the gold watch from my pocket, the one he left behind, and let it fall into the water. It sank without a sound. Maybe that's all the justice some people ever get. Not the sound of punishment, but the silence of letting go. If this story moved you, don't forget to like the video, subscribe for more powerful narratives, and share your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear what part hit you the hardest. Thanks for watching.